After 10 to 11 days of intense cricket action, we finally know who are our 4 semi-finalists in the ICC Women's T20 World Cup. England versus South Africa, that is the second semi-final that is going to happen. But the first semi-final is a massive one. India versus Australia. India are pretenders, you may say contenders to the throne, because the 4 favorites who are going to be there in the T20 World Cup semi-final, these 4 favorites are all touted to win the title. England, dominant. South Africa, from the brink, they have staged a remarkable recovery. Australia, dominance personified. India, always knocking at the door but falling at the final hurdle. That is the current situation at this point of time. India unfortunately finished second in their group after their loss to England, and that is why they were drawn to face Australia in the semi-final. England, having finished on top, will take on South Africa. Both the matches will take place on March 23 and March 24, and that will happen at Newlands, Cape Town. Now, however, the main question is, can the India women's cricket team end the domination of the Southern Stars? Because if you look at depth, if you look at all-round excellence, Australia tops the chart. Look at the batting order, for instance. You have Alyssa Healy, you have Beth Mooney, Meg Lanning, Ashley Gardner, Talia McGrath, then you also have Grace Harris. Boy, that is a power-packed batting lineup. Then the bowlers, you have Alana King, you have Megan Schutt, you have Georgia Wareham, Darcy Brown. Where can you find so much depth and talent in women's cricket? It's only available with Australia. And India, on the other hand, they have been boosted by some star performances from Smriti Mandhana, Richa Ghosh. Harmanpreet Kaur has also excelled to a certain extent, but she's been uncharacteristically slow. In the bowling lineup, that is perhaps the only challenge, because I will explain to you what are the opportunities, what are the strengths and the weaknesses of this Indian team when they prepare to face Australia tomorrow. So, brief journey of the India women's cricket team in this 2023 T20 World Cup tournament. They beat Pakistan by 7 wickets in Newlands. That was the first match that India had to face. Chasing a very tricky target, they managed to achieve it thanks to Jemima Rodriguez, magnificent 50, and also Richa Ghosh's brilliance towards the end. Then they beat West Indies by 6 wickets. Then they moved to Aberha. There they lost to England by 11 runs, unfortunately. And then they somehow got out of jail against Ireland, because Ireland needed only 5 more runs before the rain came, and because DLS method came in, India won by 5 runs. Remember, had they lost this, it would have been game over for India most likely, because their net run rate was not so promising. West Indies was a little better after their wins that came against Ireland and against Pakistan, but England and India made it through this group. Now Australia. If you have to look at their record just at the outset, when you look at T20 World Cups, it is 5 games, Australia have a 3-2 advantage. Remember, in 2020, these teams collided with each other twice. Australia lost the league game, but they absolutely hammered India in the final at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. And if you have to look at it, 2020 India won the league game that was played with Poonam Yadav excelling with 4 wickets, but they lost in the final when Alyssa Healy and Beth Mooney put on a classical display of bowling. And then you had the likes of Megan Schutt absolutely running through the Indian top order. That's why India will be aware of the threat that Australia will be producing. But actually, if you have to look at it, if there is one team that can actually beat Australia, it is India. Why is that? You may argue, yes, it is a very uphill task. On current form, it is almost impossible to beat the Australia women's cricket team. Agreed. But in the past, India have often sprung some very good surprises. In 2015-16, remember, when the India men's team had won 3-0 in Australia, the women's team achieved something more remarkable, beating the Aussies 2-1 in their home series. That was a massive, massive moment if you have to look at it. In 2022, the Southern Stars were dominating every opponent that they faced. Their one loss in 2022 Their one loss came against India. You may argue, yes, it was in a super over, but a loss is a loss. India avoided a final whitewash, something the other teams could not do. So India whitewashed them. India managed to avoid the whitewash and they won in the super over thanks to Richa Ghosh. In 2017, you have to look at knockout matches and knockout impact. In 2017, you will remember Harmanpreet Kaur's spectacular 171 in the semi-final, and that was Australia's only knockout loss this decade when you look at World Cups. Women's T20, yes, they lost to the West Indies, but if you look at it in ODI World Cups, they had suffered their only loss in the decade in that 2017 encounter. That was against India. West Indies had beaten Australia in 2013, but that was in the league game. It was in the knockout stages. So, India do have the capability to ensure that they can beat Australia. And remember, in the year prior to this, in 2021, India and Australia had squared off in a series that was held in Australia. Australia somehow managed to hang on, but their 26-game ODI unbeaten streak came to an end by India. India have been known to upset Australia at vital intervals, but on current form, they were thrashed in the 2022 Commonwealth Games opener when Talia McGrath and Grace Harris absolutely tore them apart. Then in the final, Harmanpreet Kaur's bad shot ensured and Jemima Rodriguez's slog, that ensured India fell short by just about 9 runs in the gold medal match. So India can get very close to Australia. They are the only team that seem to be capable of doing that, which is why there might be a faint sniff of optimism when India take on Australia. Now, who are the key players that India will rely upon? The first name, more than Smriti, more than Harmanpreet, that has been there in this edition of the tournament, Richa Ghosh. Sensational. Her knocks that happened against West Indies and Pakistan have shown that she is one for the future. Look at that average, 122, strike rate, 140.2. And it was Richa Ghosh's knock in the second T20I in Mumbai that ensured Australia would suffer their only loss in 2022. She averages 31 against them. Smriti Mandhana also, she averages 31 with a strike rate of 131 as well. Mandhana and Richa Ghosh, these two players will be the star. And of course, there's always the threat of Harmanpreet Kaur going ballistic, because in this last couple of games, she has kind of regressed and she's batted rather slowly. But in the big stage, and especially against Australia, Harmanpreet Kaur can bring out the best in her. And remember, 171, that knock came and it changed the entire landscape of India's women's cricket, not just world cricket. So, if you have to look at the batters, it is going to be Richa Ghosh, Smriti Mandhana and Harmanpreet Kaur. These three players will have to ensure that Australia's bowlers under pressure. Shefali Verma, on the other hand, she has been more miss than hit, and she will also have to be coming back to the party here, because Shefali Verma's aggressive blitz can throw Australia's plans awry. So, one hopes Shefali does well, and Mandhana, Harmanpreet Kaur back her very well. Richa Ghosh gives the final touches. Renuka Singh. Now, Renuka Singh has got 9 wickets against Australia, including a haul of 4 for 18. That brilliant spell that she had in Birmingham in the opening league game, it was still not enough. But Renuka Singh impressed against Australia, and that is why in 2022 she was the breakout player for India. She was one of the best bowlers in India. Currently in this T20 World Cup, she has been doing a fantastic job in the power play. But what are the threats? There is a very serious threat that is happening, and that is lack of penetration in the middle overs. India let 3 teams off the hook, and if they let Australia off the hook, it's game over. No support for Renuka Singh. Apart from Renuka Singh, the rest of the bowlers, Deepti Sharma impressed in the game against West Indies. But unfortunately, since then, Deepti has found it rather difficult to be consistent. So there is no support for Renuka Singh. And on top of that, as I had mentioned, the depth in Australia's batting and bowling is just way too powerful. Beth Mooney, Alyssa Healy, try getting past them. If you manage to do that, you have to encounter Meg Lanning. If you encounter Meg Lanning and she's in top form, she can't be stopped. Ashley Gardner, fantastic power hitting. Grace Harris, if you think Richa Ghosh's power hitting is a sight for sore eyes, Grace Harris has been in prime form. And then you have to look at the bowling. Alana King, then you have Georgia Wareham, then you have Jess Johnson, and you have Megan Schutt. So all these players are simply one of a kind in this Australian team, and that is the major problem that India are going to face. Aussies A game in knockouts. Any Australian team, they always bring their A game in the knockout stages. And that is where India will have a major problem. The one factor which I will talk about, which has not been mentioned here, the fielding. India's ground fielding has been patchy. They have dropped catches. If they drop catches and their ground fielding is very patchy here, Australia will make you pay. And they are the team who have been undefeated in this tournament so far. Who knows, in the semi-final, perhaps that one loss can happen. And there is one more interesting twist in this. Remember, India have played 2 matches in Newlands. This will be Australia's first game at Newlands. They had played their first 2 games in Boland Park, Pal, and after that they played in Berhad. That was how Australia's league fixtures were summarized. India, on the other hand, 2 in Cape Town, 2 in Berhad. That's how the situation is at this point in time. Simple fact, India have to ensure that their ground fielding is spot on. If that doesn't happen, then it is game over. Remember the 2020 World T20 final? What was the one defining moment? Shefali Verma dropping Alyssa Healy in the first over. That drop saw India lose total momentum, and Alyssa Healy made them pay in a big way. India will have to ensure their catching is to the mark, and there needs to be great support for Renuka Singh. Because if Renuka Singh alone, she cannot manage and she has an off day, like how she did against Pakistan, will there be a plan B for India? That is the most important thing. So 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, February 23rd, Newlands, Cape Town will see India versus Australia, the first semi-final. The second semi-final will be England versus South Africa. It seems to be going the 2017 way. Can India repeat 2017, in which they beat Australia in the semi-final and they went to the final? Can England beat South Africa? Because England, they have been the top team in this group, but South Africa, they are staging a major resurgence in this tournament. Can they give their home fans something to cheer in what has been a pretty dark era for South African cricket? Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this build-up to the ICC World T20 semi-final. We'll be there on match day. We'll give you all the updates. Subscribe to Sports Today. Tap that bell icon so you know when we go live. We are also there on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget to download the SportsTak mobile app, because all the content, all the highlights that you want in Hindi and English, you'll find it on the SportsTak mobile app. Thank you.